Well, good evening, everyone. Appreciate you joining us for what is really just sort of an overview of some things we want to do this summer, starting on Monday. And I want to, because I want this, I would love for this to be something that it's not just me and a few handful of volunteers are doing, but everyone who can participate does participate in. I wanted to have a meeting before we got going, just to sort of lay out a little bit of what we think, the things we want to do, starting with the VBS on Monday. This is the beginning of an idea. End of last year, as I was praying for St. Andrews and asking God for guidance about what this year was going to look like and things he wanted. I think he wanted the church to be doing. One of the things I was impressed with is a desire to do more for our children, but not in a manner where we separate the children from the church, but just to include our children in what we do, and so that they are doing things with us, learning with us. And so we talked about that at the beginning of the year, and had the idea of using our liturgy, our service, and begin to make things with the children. You might call them the props of the service, and begin to teach them, and really teach ourselves, because I'm learning a lot as I study this myself. Why we do these things, what these things mean. We use these props, these things that we have in a service for a reason. They're very deliberately used, and so wanted to be able to use those to teach the children along with us as we learn. So the whole church is involved in that. That was sort of a vague idea, and a number of you have helped sort of solidify that and help move that forward. And I'm really grateful to the Clements, because it'd still be just an idea percolating in my mind probably if they hadn't have said, all right, let's do a VBS and get this started. And so I appreciate the nudge, the push that they've given to get things going. So we're going to start with the cross. And I'm going to share my screen here for a moment. So I am calling this the summer of the cross, because I want to start this process with the cross, and it seems to me a very appropriate place to start. Maybe even start and end the cross, because it encompasses, as we'll see in our study, all of time. The cross reaches back to the very beginning and reaches forward to the very end of time, and so it seems to me a very good place to start. And what we're going to do has sort of taken shape very quickly, and somewhat still taking shape. And what we're going to look at this evening. And much of the success of this will depend, I think, on a collaborative effort to give it shape and to really find meaning and really spend time looking at the cross. I can't do that for you. So I really am asking that we do some of this together. And I'm going to lay out some ways I think we can do that. So the summer, I've sort of divided this summer of the cross into two parts. The first is VBS, and that starts next week. We start on Monday, and this is a time very specifically where we're working with our children. And we're going to go in a minute. We're going to go through just show what we're going to be doing with the children. Those who are not going to be at VBS are welcome to really be thinking about the lessons and things we're doing at home. And then after VBS, there's going to be what I, for lack of a better terminology, am calling post-VBS. And there's going to be some lessons we do on Sunday on the cross, in the liturgy, in daily life. I have what I'm calling collaborative resources, some things I would like for us all to be thinking and adding to and encouraging one another in. And then on September 12th, we're going to have a celebration. September 12th is the closest Sunday to the Feast of the Holy Cross, which is September 14th. And so we'll have a Sunday wrapping it all up. But we start with VBS, and the basic info for VBS is it is Monday through Friday next week, 9 to noon. Parents, if you're taking your children there, know that Monday, Thursday, and Friday, it will be at church. Tuesday and Wednesday, it will be at the Clements house. And I want to take just a few minutes now and just go over what we're going to be doing at VBS. And I want to make sure parents especially know what's happening, because I don't want to be the ones solely teaching your children. I want you to be reinforcing this at home, working with this in your home with your kids, talking about it, and so that you're not just sending your kids to church and saying, all right, you guys teach my children the faith. So I'm going to go over the material that we're going to be using. And I just sent this document out to the church 10 minutes ago. So you should have this in an email. And it's just a basic overview. So there will be two groups of kids. One, I think, is going to be fourth grade and under, and then fifth grade and up through high school. And in the morning, we're going to have a time of worship using the prayer book. I'm going to give a very brief homily. We're going to do work on music. And then they're going to split into class time, where the younger group is going to be with Angie, and they're going to work on some class time in a second. In a second, I'm going to let Angie share what material she's using. We have some material that the church has purchased that she's going to be using. And then you can see the basic outline for the rest of the day. The older group will be with myself and Sharon and Courtney, and we'll be working with them, going over the same lessons. We're going to look at it in a second. But they're going to be working on making crosses. And Will Clement is going to be helping us, our master woodworker, is going to be helping us make processional cross, altar crosses, and the kids are going to be involved with doing that. Now, I will note, we're going to be building crosses, doing woodwork. And so for parents' sake, know we're going to be working with tools. Will be doing all the power tools that little children should not be using. And so we will be teaching them how to work safely. But they will be around tools. We were going to keep them safe. Everything's going to be okay. And they will have dust masks, they'll have ear protection. And they will be working with some sanding material and a sander and some very basic tools that they're going to be learning to use that'll be appropriate for their age. But they're going to be building crosses. They'll be learning about wood. I'm excited to know it. They're going to be learning about different kinds of wood, about woodworking. And there will be at the end a finished product where they will have made a cross that we will use in service. And we'll learn about more of that over the summer, of why we use those in services. Angie, do you want to go ahead? Let me go ahead and ask you to share a little bit about the material that we're going to be using with the younger kids.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So, I'm sorry. Okay. All right. So we are going to be using this material that we had purchased not too long before COVID hit and we stopped having Sunday school. We had purchased it to use in Sunday school. It's the Gospel Story Curriculum by Marty Machowski. And the whole purpose of this curriculum is to show Jesus throughout all of the Old Testament and the New Testament. So it actually fits in very well with the theme of the cross, because all of the lessons that we're going to be looking at this week are from the Old Testament, and just showing how the cross is really the story of all of the Bible, of all of history. So that's what we're going to be using. And this curriculum is, it presents the facts, the facts of the stories that we'll be looking at. We're going to start the first day with the tree of knowledge of good and evil and the tree of life and the fall in the Garden of Eden. Then the next day we're going to be talking about Passover, and then Aaron's blossoming rod, then the story of Samson, and then finally the bronze snake lifted up in the wilderness and the crucifixion. So for each of those stories, some of them will be more or less familiar to the kids, I think. We'll be getting the facts of the story, what happened, who did it happen to, and so forth. But then we'll also be looking at where we see Jesus, where we see the cross in these stories. And then we'll be looking at, well, what difference does this make to us as Christians? And I know one of the things that Father TJ has stressed with this is that we want the kids to come away from this with a stronger sense of their identity as people of the cross, as Christians. So, we'll be looking at, well, what does this mean for me as a follower of Jesus, as a person of the cross? So, along with just, with them hearing the story, we'll also be doing some pencil and paper work. And this will be similar to the children's bulletins that we have on Sunday. Some of them will be those, but I've got some other resources with pencil and paper activities. And this is just, I feel like it's good for the kids to sort of interact with the material in several different ways. So in addition to hearing the lesson presented, this chance to do some sort of like workbook work is another way to work with the material. And then also the younger kids will be doing crafts. And I do like when I'm doing crafts with kids for them to be more or less meaningful, not just something that, stays on the floor of the minivan for the next 2 years. We've all had that happen. So we're going to be doing a little bit of stitchery and some bead work, and then also some paper mosaics. And then I think the Samson craft is the one that is most likely to end up on the floor of the minivan, but I think the kids will enjoy it. So again, the craft is just another way for the kids to interact with the material. So we'll be doing that. And then in addition, Cindy and Sarah are going to be doing music with all the kids, and we'll reinforce that throughout the day. And we are going to have snack time. And thank you, Father Ron and Becky, for supplying us with snacks. The snack time too is not, it's not just, because blood sugar is getting low or whatever, but it's a time for the kids to sit down at the table together and eat together. And it's the time for them, again, how do we act as followers of Jesus? How do we act as people of the cross by, being courteous to one another, remembering to say please and thank you, looking out for others, making, civil conversation and so forth. So it's kind of an exercise in Christian fellowship as well. So I think that's pretty much. And then we'll also have some outdoor time if it's not too hot, and little game time too. So
very good. Thank you. So Angie just went over the lessons that we're going to be looking at on the 5 days. And I have written here a little thoughts that I've had on each of the lessons, connecting them with the cross. I'm not going to go through and read them here. You have this document in your email. You can look at it. So I don't want to waste your time reading it now. But my thoughts here are not exhaustive. There are many different ways you could look at these stories and see Christ and the cross in them. And so my thoughts here are just to give you a sort of priming the pump of you. If you're a parent, then some ideas that I think would be helpful to start introducing to your children to think about. We have some scriptures here that I think are relevant to the lesson. So we're going to do begin in the beginning, the tree of knowledge of good and evil, and tree of life, and how are these connected to the cross. Then the Passover that Angie mentioned, Aaron's rod. We'll look at that and how we might see the cross in that. The one that is, when I've talked about that, have been the most surprising, and it was the most surprising to me. Someone pointed this out to me, but Samson, someone who is a teacher, pointed this out to me and said this was actually been a fruitful way of teaching their children. And I will add here that this is a time when we will talk about this. Samson is mentioned in Hebrews as one of the heroes of the faith, as one we are to look up to. We don't usually think of Samson as being someone to emulate on the whole. He's lived a rather sordid life, it seems. But all of these Old Testament pictures are very imperfect, and they leave us waiting and wanting for the true Christ to come, the perfect revelation of God. And Samson's actually, I think, a good picture of that imperfection pointing to perfection. So we're looking at that. And then in the end, really hone in on the crucifixion and use the bronze serpent, which Jesus himself used to signify his crucifixion. So those are the lessons we're going to be going over with the kids. And I really do encourage those of you who are not part of the VBS to spend time thinking about these and reading these passages, meditating on them, and sort of seeing how Christ, the story of the cross, begins from the very beginning and reaches to us. So those are all Old Testament stories. We're going to be doing scripture memorization from the New Testament. Two passages during this week from the New Testament. Galatians 2:20. I've been crucified with Christ. It is no longer I who live, but Christ who lives in me. And the life I now live in the flesh, I live by the faith of the Son of God who loved me and gave himself for me. And then Matthew 16:24-26. Then Jesus told his disciples, if anyone would come after me, let him deny himself, take up his cross and follow me. For whoever would save his life will lose it, but whoever loses his life for my sake will find it. For what will it profit a man if he gains the whole world and forfeits his soul? Or what will a man give in return for his soul? So I wanted to pick these two passages because while we're looking at Christ and the cross from the very beginning in the lessons, in our memory verses, we're going to be seeing Christ and the cross as it applies, not in the past, but right now to my life, that I am crucified with Christ and that I am to take up my cross with Christ and to give my life away. That's what the cross, in a sense, how it identifies me and gives me my life and tells me who I am. So we see the cross in the very beginning, and we see the cross right now in my life as well. So we'll be working on that. There will be some other memory verses that I'm going to include for potential later in the summer, but these are the ones we're going to be looking at for the coming week. Angie mentioned we're going to be music. So on this document I sent you are the songs we're going to be using. Really grateful to Cindy and Sarah for doing our music for us, coming up with this. For the parents who have Spotify, Cindy has made a Spotify playlist that you can listen to. The links here on this document all take you to a YouTube video of it. This actually takes you to a YouTube video where there's a woman teaching the hand motion. So it doesn't actually have the singing the song, I don't think, but it teaches the hand motion. But these are the songs we're going to be learning and working on during the week. And you can be working on those with your kids at home as well. The last thing I will show you here about VBS is we have a sheet here for the older kids, just letting you know. Our older kids is going to be less of a lecture sort of thing. It's going to be hopefully discussion based, so parents, you can be encouraging your children to participate as much as they can. We're going to give them a sheet like this for each day to take notes. And so they're going to be learning maybe some note taking they're not going to have to turn this in. They're not going to have to talk about it. They don't have to share any of this. It's going to be just for them, but just something to give them, to write it down, to give them things I learned, things I found interesting, questions I still have, other notes. So this is just for them in their own personal use. So that's what I have as far as material for VBS. I'm going to give anybody who wants to ask a question about VBS now to do that. Once again, after the recording's over, there'll be people who you can ask again if you don't want to be on the recording. But if someone has a question now to ask, they can do that. All right. So that is next week. But I don't want our thinking about the cross to stop next week. After VBS, I want us to continue to think about the cross, and the success of the rest of the summer really will depend on how much the church as a whole wants to look at the cross and to think about it for themselves. And so I am laying out a number of ways that we're going to continue to think about the cross. I'm going to encourage us to continue to think about the cross and what it means for us. So there's going to be, after the 18th, we'll have our missionary family with us on the 18th. After that, from there to the 12th, every Sunday, we're going to be looking at various ways the cross has been, in some places, is used in liturgy or in daily life. So we're familiar with the processional cross. We're going to talk about why we do that, what that signifies, right? An altar cross. We're going to have one, but we're not used to that. Why do we have one of those? And so we're list a number of things that we use, things we do. The sign of the cross, where does that come from? And why has that been done from the very beginning? As an identifying thing, a way you identify yourself as a person under the cross. Why is it used for blessings, the sign of the cross? So we're going to be looking at various things. We're just going to take a few minutes on Sunday during the service to talk to the kids about this, but also I'm learning about these things as well. I think there's probably something that we can all learn in it. So that'll be on the Sundays. The next thing is going to be what I'm calling collaborative resources. And the success of this really will depend on the church as a whole. So let me pull up. I just sent you a Google Doc of this collaborative resources in which anyone can anyone who received it can come in and add to this. So this is just ways that, and what I've put in several things already, things in the Bible that I'm not going to be covering VBS, but are things I've thought about in Old Testament about what the cross is, what it means, things in art, things in literature. I haven't put music in, but some of you who are musicians can think of songs and music you could add to this that really speak of the cross and how it speaks to your life. So whatever you think of that is cross related, that is about the cross, that is meaningful to your life. Maybe it's a photo that you can add to this. I'd encourage you to do that with a little bit of a description of how this is meaningful, how this has pointed you to Christ and the cross, how it shaped your life. So I'm not going to go over all this. You have this, you can look at it. I'll show you some examples of what I'm talking about. Before I do that, I will note, if we're thinking about kids, you're going to say, well, TJ, this writing that you put in here doesn't sound like it's for kids. You know, say you're right. I'm writing to parents. I would encourage parents to take this and say, you know your kids better than I do. Show these things to your kids as you see fit and teach them in the way that you know best. I've given you some thoughts there, but I would encourage you to take them and use them. I will add to that, not all parents are going to see dealing with these things on the same level. And so I want to allow discretion for parents. And this is why I'm giving it to parents. There is no way of talking about the cross without talking about death. And sometimes there are parents who are a little bit squeamish about talking about death and anguish to their kids. You know your kids better than I do. I will encourage you to teach a robust teaching of the cross. This is a good place for kids to learn that Christianity teaches that death is not something to be afraid of, that Christ has defeated death, and the sting, it has lost its sting, that it is not something to be afraid of. They are going to learn about death. I think it, in the context of the cross, is a great way to do that. So, so what I have up here is, are things I'm going to be working with my children about, and so if I will leave it to your discretion how you do that as well. So I'm in Bible, the topic of trees. The Bible relates across to a tree in multiple places, and trees are throughout the Bible. It's a fruitful topic of thinking about the cross and how Christ works. The burning bush. I recently in a sermon talked a little bit about this. I think it's a great little story to think about the cross. I've talked a little bit about that in here as well. So you may think of other places in the Bible where you think, oh yeah, I see the cross here. And I'd encourage you, put that in here. Let us know. There are ways I've not seen it that I'd encourage you to think about it. Art, I've included a few paintings here that have been very meaningful to me in showing me aspects of the cross. I put a couple of them in here, and with explanations of how they've been meaningful to me and what they've meant to me. So one by Grunewald and one by Rembrandt. And then some pieces of literature, the poem that we read on Good Friday with aspects of the cross on here. Some thoughts on that. This is one of Chesterton that a lot of people are not going to find very helpful. I kind of find it appealing. Some of you will, some of you won't. And then a work I'm reading this summer, the Christ of Velasquez by Miguel de Unamuno. Father Phil encouraged me to read it. So those are some ideas. I would just really encourage you to take this, think about the cross, and share. It means being a little bit vulnerable here, sharing some ideas, some of the things that are meaningful to you. But if we're going to be in community together, I think it's good to really have that vulnerability where you can share things that are maybe a little bit personal, how these things have shaped you. So I encourage you to add music, add pictures, whatever it is, fill it up so that we can encourage one another and share our ideas. Here, I've put on here, because I didn't know where else to put it, some memory verses that I would encourage us and with our kids and families, just some suggestions of things that we can be memorizing. That's at the end of the Google Doc here as well. If you have some other ideas and you want to add to that, you can do that as well. So this is an open resource. Add to it. What I put on here, you may look at that and say, well, TJ, that really sounds like things you would like. And you know what? You're exactly right. Those are things I like. And that doesn't work for everybody. Well, put on things you like. Other people will find that where my art or literature people are not going to be drawn to, well, maybe they'll be drawn to what you find meaningful in the cross. So share, put it on there and let us know. Be thinking. So that's a resource. We'll leave it open all summer. Encourage you to add to it and participate in that. And then on Sunday, September 12th, we'll celebrate the Feast of the Holy Cross and end our summer. On that day, we'll go ahead and consecrate the crosses that we've made, sort of get them going. I think consecration is a good thing for kids to see. We're setting apart things as holy, as meant for God, and that's an important thing about who we are. We are consecrated and set apart as holy for God. And I think it's a good thing for kids to see. So we'll be doing that. Beyond that, how festive this day is really will depend on all of us. What I would love to see on that day is a day of us sharing things that we've worked on um, throughout this couple of months. What I have envisioned, I would love to see um, drawings or paintings that kids have made of the cross and things that have in their minds that they've learned from the summer and that they were able to put on paper. Or some of you musicians, maybe a piece of music you've written or you found that you could perform, or a poem for some of you that expresses some of the things you've learned. I'm thinking, I know we're doing woodwork on this coming week. I'm thinking about doing some of my own personal woodworking, making some crosses, my own, that will be meaningful for me. If I can get that done, I'll share that on that Sunday. So a project, something that you can be working on, either physically or in your mind, or a painting or whatever it may be, that we could share with one another and say, this is how I've seen the cross this summer. So I would love for that to happen. I can't make that happen. That will depend on how well we or how much buy-in we get with that. So we'll see what happens on the 12th. I encourage you to be thinking about it, finding a way to express things how you've seen the cross this summer, and then sharing that with each other. So, and that will wrap up our Summer of the Cross. Once again, this has taken shape quickly and can still take many shapes. If some of you have ideas for how to better share things, I come up with a Google Doc. That's about the extent of my technological prowess, digital communication prowess. So if some of you have better ideas of how to do that, I'm not on social media, so I don't do those sorts of things. But if some of you knows how better to collaborate, share, come up with ideas, I think it would be great. If there's enough interest, maybe halfway through, especially for the parents, we can get together on a Zoom meeting and say, here's some things that have worked, we're teaching my kids, and here's some things that haven't worked, and share some ideas with one another. So I think this has a lot of potential if we will do it. One, to learn more about the cross and how it means and how it should shape our lives. But beyond that, also as a way of really building community, sharing with one another, learning from one another, speaking in each other's lives, and which is also important for our kids to see happening as well. So I'd encourage us to spend time thinking about the cross, sharing what we see with one another. So that's what I have now, and I don't want to take up really more of your time than necessary. So I'm going to once again ask if anybody has ideas, questions, anything they would want to share now, ways this can be done better. Happy to hear any of those.
It's Father TJ. I just wanted to say to you and both Angie and Will and Cindy and Sarah, thank you. This is so fantastic. I feel like the thought put into this and the whole kind of orbed nature of the music and the art and the verses and the teaching and stuff, and us getting to have it as a community and getting to have a consecration of the thing at the end. I just think that this is going to be very useful and memorable for the kids and for the adults. So I'm going to enjoy going through this as a family and enjoy witnessing all this stuff as a church. So all I wanted to say was thank you for all of you having put so much effort and thought into something that's going to be very good for us.
Well, you're welcome. And I encourage you to, once again, share and help out with it as well. I'm looking forward. I'm really hoping that I'm not the only one sharing my thoughts on this. I really want to learn from you guys too. So, yeah. Any other thoughts or questions? I will end the recording in a minute. And if if someone has questions they don't want to ask on the recording, we can do that. But anything else that good ideas that maybe those who are going to watch the recording may want to hear as well? All right. Well, let me end with just got a question. Do we need any supplies? I think we're good for now. Really, as far as extra things we could use, as I mentioned a little while ago, if people have better, any ideas of how to extra, ways to make this better, I'm happy to have those. Any ways to people have to collaborate better, to make things a little nicer in our sharing. I'm really not good at coming up with nice looking things too, so documents and that sort of thing. So anyway, anybody have ideas how to make those sorts of things better? Glad to have that. But as for supplies, for now, I think we're good. Someone asked if we can hear from one of the 3 older class teachers, and I would say you have. I'm one of those. I will be the one doing that mostly. We're going to split days with Courtney and Sharon, but I think I'm not going to make them speak. Basically, it's going to be sort of hopefully discussion based, trying to get questions and talk to one another. Well, all right, let me pray and I'll end the recording, and then we'll, if anybody else has another question, they can ask it though. Father, I thank you that you sent your son to die on the cross for us. I thank you that you've taken broken, ugly people and made them beautiful by taking broken, ugly wood, dead wood, and bringing life from death. Thank you that you do that, and you bring us into it. You give us life, and I pray that would really take hold on our hearts this summer, both of our kids and in us as adults. And that we'd fall more deeply in love with you. We'd be more confident in what you've done. Be confident in who you've made us to be. You've given us this identity by having us crucified with Christ and giving us his life, his identity. And I pray you'd help us to understand a little bit more what that means and have our lives formed by it. So bless our time this summer. I pray you would really inspire us through your word, through the work of your people, and that you would draw us together in the cross and help us to love one another and you better this summer. We ask all this in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen.